Okay, so I thought before we started stitching our letters that we would first learn and practice how to do a back stitch. So a back stitch does mean that you are going back. You are going forward, okay? So we call this the first hole, number 1, right? This would be number 2, and this would be number 3, okay? So we're gonna go through where you start and where you end. So this is called a back stitch, and it has no gaps. If we just do regular sewing, then you have a dashed line, and we want the line to be solid. So to practice this, get a Post-it, draw a line, put some points on the line that you're going to sew a solid line, and then you're going to use the T-pin once again and pre-punch through the Post-its. Okay, so I'm just going to do a short demo on how to do a back stitch, and you should practice back stitch too before you put it onto your final paper. I'm going to use the same thread that I was practicing with, and when I'm finished, I can just pull this thread right off the paper and I won't have to do a thing. I can just sew my next project. So this will be garbage when we're done, so it's not a big deal. So when you start back stitch, you always start from the back side, right? So the underside of the leaf. So if I was starting this, I'm going to start from the back side of the leaf. I'm going to start from the back side of the paper. And don't pull really hard because this is paper, it's not fabric, and it should hold, right? But if I yanked really hard, I'd probably just rip the hole larger and it would come out. Now, if I go to the next one, so I'm going to go from 1 to 2. So that makes sense, right? 1 to 2, right? But if I went to 3 next, I would be leaving this spot blank. So I actually want to I want to go 3, but then back to 2. So this is where we start going backwards. So I start forwards. So by the time I get to the 3rd stitch, I need to go backwards 1, back to the hole that I was in, and then I'm going to skip to 4. Okay, so I went 1, 2, I came up through 3, back to 2, and so now I go to 4. So what I'm going to be doing is skipping 1 every time, or going backwards. So I went from 4 to 3. And then I am going from hole 3 to 5. And then from 5 to 4, then from 4 to 6, then from 6 to 5, and then 5 to 7. So I had 7 holes total, and then the last one I have to go back to number 6. So back stitch means I go forward 2, backwards 1, forward 2, backwards 1. When I'm done, I should have a solid line with no gaps, okay? And it should look same on, well, it'll look slightly different, but it should be a solid line on the back too. So when you're all finished practicing, you're just going to tear it apart. This string is pretty strong. I even use double Post-its, but I can just rip the paper too. And then I can get my thread back out, and I won't have to re-knot it or do anything. It's ready to go for your sewing.